Letter from the author. Fuck. There. Don't you feel better? Now that we've got that out of the way, we can begin to move forward. You might like to know that I'm not a swearer, but Friday is my second favorite F word. Also, I'm not a drinker, but I love a good bottle of vodka. I'm not a gambler, but my favorite spot in the whole wide world is Las Vegas. And I'm not a traveler, but I've been around the world a time or two. If you think this book is going to be all prim and proper and bring you to a nice, neat resolution with a pretty little red bow, I'm sorry, you're mistaken. Close the book, set it down, and back away very slowly. This book is messy, just like life, just like grief. You'll probably disagree with some of what I have to say, and you might find me crass and ridiculous. That's your prerogative. I do, however, promise you'll be entertained, and maybe, just maybe, you'll learn a thing or two along the way. Like, did you know that the national animal of Scotland is the unicorn? There, you've learned something. Every year, in mid to late August, there's a day that I just feel off. I can't focus. I just want to be mad at the world, and I eat everything within arm's reach, preferably chocolate and potato chips. It takes me nearly all day before I realize why I'm being a first-class grump. My Facebook feed is full of kids' back-to-school pictures. All the kiddos in their cute little outfits, excited to get back to their friends with their lunch boxes and backpacks. It always reminds me that my daughter, Madeline Elizabeth, isn't here on this earth to experience those firsts. You see, in May 2010, my husband Kyle and I experienced the worst grief we thought to be humanly possible. Our Madeline died just 8 hours after she was born while still in my arms. Her very brief life and death shook me to my very core. Even now, over a decade later, I still think about how our lives should have been. I should be screaming at a 10-year-old to get dressed before her cereal gets soggy. I should be annoyingly taking pictures of her and the neighbor kids on their way to school. I should be irritated that the price of markers went up. And why do I really need 37 boxes of tissues? And why is Target out of glue? And what happened to last year's backpack? No, you don't need a new one every year. But I'm not. Instead, I'm sitting in my home office in the fetal position, incessantly scrolling through first day of school pictures, unable to look away. As if somehow, magically, my Maddie will appear in one of them. Society believes that grief and mourning last 3, 6, or even 9 months, maybe 12 months if it's really bad. You know, like the death of your child. Then that imaginary buzzer goes off, the button pops, and you're all done, just like the Thanksgiving Day turkey. Ta-da! You're all healed. Everything's all rainbows and puppy dogs now. Time to get over it. Time to move along. People who haven't truly experienced earth-shattering grief, mind-numbing grief, are under the impression healing is a linear process. You just need to work through the stages, and the harder you try, the faster you will solve your grief. Oh my God, how I wish that were true. I'd have a gold medal in grief healing if that were the case. In reality, grief is a topsy-turvy, loop-de-loop of a roller coaster. When you're really in the deep grief, you feel like you're going to feel this way forever. You don't see a light or a silver lining. You only see pitch black. And there's no way to logic yourself into believing anything else. Sometimes, the minute you think you're near the finish line, you get transported back to the start. Sorry, board game style. You get pangs of grief at all different times. Alan Wolfelt, PhD, calls them grief bursts. Sometimes you can predict when you'll be triggered, like going to a wedding or a baby shower, but most often they hit you out of nowhere, upside the head, like that random day in August when things just feel off until I realize halfway through the day, it's the first day of school, and that's why I'm a mess. While I do believe you can eventually graduate from the deep, heavy on your heart, can't get out of bed, debilitating grief, you never actually get over it. you never actually move on. You only learn to carry it and move forward towards your new normal. When I was in my debilitating stage of grief, the 5-year period after Madeline died, when I thought I deserved a plaque for getting out of bed and leaving the house, I read all the books. And I do mean all the books. About grief, about child loss, about how to get normal again. Mostly I read all the books because they were given to me by people that thought 4 months was long enough to be sad about my dead baby. During that time, I realized there were really only 2 types of grief books. The research-based, clinical, fact-driven, so dry you want to gouge your eyes out with a spork books written by a professor with a last name that has no vowels, or the faith-based, touchy-feely, overly emotional, Jesus did this for you, not to you, books written by a reverend or a shaman or whoever can be ordained by an online made-up church. Both types of books reside in their special version of La La Land and forbid you from believing the other type of book even exists, let alone has valid arguments. Now, don't get me wrong. Both of these styles of books have bits of information worth reading. But if you're a middle-of-the-roader like me, you have to sift through a whole bunch of crap to get to the meaty parts. And neither book will come right out and tell you what you're thinking, what we're all thinking. This is the suckiest thing that has ever sucked. How in the hell is the world still spinning when I am at the bottom of my suckitude? Well, I'm here to say it does suck. I wouldn't wish this feeling on my worst enemy. And also, it's nice to know there are others out there that have experienced the amount of suck in their life too. So you're not alone in all of that suckage. I'm here to hold your hand, lend an ear, and sit in the suck with you. Because that's what's missing from the current form of grief support, the actual support. This book and the whole concept of sharing solace came out of that suckiness. They're really just tools to bring together a community of suckers where we can be real, honest, and authentic in our experiences, all while making it suck just a little bit less by knowing there are others that walk alongside us in our journey. Now, here's a side note. You'll hear all about Sharing Solace later. The short version, Sharing Solace, launched in 2018, is my way of honoring the life, legacy, and love of my daughter, Madeline Elizabeth. It was created to support others as they move along their own unique grief path, no matter what their grief. We're here to help you remember you're not alone. So contrary to popular belief, grief is not a problem to be solved. It's an ongoing situation that needs to be adapted to and managed. There is no one answer. There is only companioning others along their personal and unique grief journey. That's another term coined by Dr. Wolfelt. If you picked up this book, you probably already know grief is all kinds of wonky and somehow is able to time travel. Most grief self-help books tell you to skip around and over the parts that as you see fit. So I'm just writing it that way. Plus, if NPH can write a choose your own experience book, then so can I. Yep, I'm calling this a choose your own grief guide. So read this book cover to cover or skip around or don't. It's totally up to you. The layout of this book mirrors the path of grief. Your unique journey is yours to choose and so is your interpretation of this book. So let's get the ball rolling with the first fork in the road. Are you fulfilled with your book? Are you fulfilled with your book reading experience? All your grief is now completely healed from the above messages and you feel you no longer need to continue reading? Please close this book, turn off this webpage, and immediately go to Amazon and leave a 5-star review. Oh, and purchase at least a copy or 2 for your friends. I sincerely hope you can hear the sarcasm in my voice. Or 2, want to keep reading? Okay, do that.